Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining me for this lunchtime webinar. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about brushing up your CV. So my name's Della Judd. I'm a career coach and author of the book, and I'm just grabbing it here. I should have prepared that earlier. I'm just grabbing it here. Author of the book, Get the Job You Really Want in a Post-Pandemic World. And in it, I talk a little bit about how you can prepare your CV. And I just thought I wanted to jump on today because there's such a lot of talk at the moment about what's going to go on over the winter of discontent and the economy changing. Are we going into recession? And actually, what I wanted to really encourage people to do was to take a look at your CV before you potentially need to. There are so many people that I work with who perhaps have been made redundant and they get to look at their CV and they suddenly realise that it is actually 5 years out of date and they can't really remember all of the steps of the roles and responsibilities they've had throughout their particular stint in a particular role. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. And, you know, there are a lot of stats out there at the moment that will talk about different areas of the work population, that whether we're going to be going into redundancies, whether employers are going to switch from an employee market at the moment to an employers market, where they'll be actually be able to be a bit more selective. So your CV is going to be really important. I've also seen some stats about the number of people who sort of dropped out of the job market during post-COVID. But actually there are some stats that are showing that people are going to come back into the job market. And they might be people perhaps of the older age groups. And there's an Office for National Statistics study recently that said the number of people aged between 50 and 64 that were economically inactive rose by 10% since the pandemic ended. So they basically opted out of the job market. But that actually right now, some of those people, 72% of those surveyed said that they were considering going back into the job market. And that's partly because of financial reasons. And a lady I was talking to this morning said someone that they knew had retired and now is coming back into the job market simply because of affordability and costs. Some others are saying that they're boredom, or they want to take advantage of the fact that there are so many jobs out there at the moment. So whatever your reason is for thinking about your CV, now is a really good time, and perhaps you've got a little bit of time over Christmas to think about CV and getting it up to date and just brushing it up. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was just getting that focus. Focusing on what you're looking for can be really helpful when you're thinking about your CV. So first of all, if it is 5 years out of date, then make sure you're just putting in all of the basic information. And I would recommend creating a CV copy that is like a master copy of everything that you've done. I recommend that people tailor their CVs so that whenever they're doing a specific application, they've tailored it to that particular role. And then you can take out the bits that are not as relevant for that organisation and leave in the ones that you really want to highlight. So making sure, if you haven't touched it for years, go back to it, get literally everything down. And that can be all the dates, job roles, responsibilities, not just thinking though of the tasks and the job list that you did, the job titles. One of the things when I do my CV reviews that is missing in so many is the achievements that people have delivered, what they've done, but also a little bit more about how they've done it. And I'll come on to a little bit about that later. But when you've got everything up to date, you've put everything in, thinking about the sort of role that you want to be going for in the future, and it may be just the same as what you're doing right now, maybe something slightly different. Think about the areas of the CV that you actually want to highlight. So, for an example, when I used to run my customer services team, I had lots and lots of different aspects. I used to do some project management, I used to do commercial budgets, a lot of people management, quite a lot of technical customer service uh, technology that I was using. But I also ran learning and development groups, recruitment, and all the things that were to do with people. Now, if I was to write a CV and I was going for a project manager job, I would pull out all of the things that I had ever done that were to do with projects, how I led certain things, how I wrote business cases, how I signed things off, change management, that kind of thing. But actually, for me, although I've done those things, I wouldn't want to focus on those now, because my CV, I would want to make it really focused on people, coaching, mentoring, and all of the people development work that I did. I was still in the same job, but I had various aspects of it, and I would want to highlight the people side more than the project side. So maybe this is you. If you're thinking about where you want to be going, if you want more people management, people leadership, then look at everything that you've done in the past and any role that you've had. Where could you highlight the specific people areas to put into the CV? And you might want to dial down some of the experience that you've had in, say, a commercial or project area if you don't think it's going to be relevant. So really focusing on those things and highlighting those. Now, if you are watching online, you can say hello, ask me a question in the chat if you'd like. You might be watching on replay, that's fine. You can always DM me afterwards. So one of the things that we do as a tendency, and I don't know where this has come from, perhaps it's just old-fashioned CV writing, but a lot of CVs that I see and have seen, and I've seen hundreds over the years, they create a CV, and I've done this myself. I say they, but we create CVs that are very list-based. And it'll say, you know, I did this job for these dates. I had 10 people, this budget. I ran this department, etc., etc., etc. And it's a list of tasks. It can also list things like different systems. I used X, Y, and Z, and I ran these sorts of projects, X, Y, and Z. The thing with those, although it's quite good to give you a view of what you did, it doesn't really tell the recruiter or the hiring manager anything about you as a person. So one of the things that I like to get people to focus on is why you were doing it. So what's your passion? So when I talked a bit earlier about people, I would say more along the lines, I am passionate about making a difference to people. I am passionate about helping people with their careers. I am passionate about creating a learning environment in organizations, something like that. So it's more about why I'm interested in that field. If you can focus on using some of that language, the passions, why you're interested in this particular sector, how you've got into it, that language might start to come out a little bit more for you, and it shows the recruiter and the hiring manager, this person genuinely is interested in this organization, this sector, this service. The other thing that you can then list is, and what people miss is not just the so it's a task list that it sometimes is. You want to focus on your achievements, what you delivered, as well, because if you just say I ran a department of X or I ran this project of Y, it doesn't say whether it went well or not. So one of the key things is to think about the word achievement. What did you deliver by delivering that project or that program or that service? If you're saying I implemented a new, I'll use an example for me, I implemented a new help desk. More of an expansive way to be saying that is I delivered a brand new help desk from a standing start within 3 months under budget. Or I made savings when I outsourced a service that meant that the business saved £200,000 a year. So you're talking about the achievement in a quantifiable way. It could be that you trained people. It could be that you learned a new system which enabled you to do whatever. So always be thinking about why you're interested and what that job was meaning, but also what you delivered as well. What are those key achievements? And you can add those to the CV then, so it isn't just a list of job titles. The final question to ask yourself is, how do you deliver this? If I was to look at a list of 10 CVs for project managers or 10 HR managers, what is going to make you stand out? And the reason that you will stand out is if you start to describe how you work. And by that, I mean what it is about you personally that you do differently that gets the job done in the particular way that you do it. Now, a coach of mine asked me this question, and it really did make me think, actually, what was it about me, Della, who, when I ran a workshop or when I was motivating my team, it's all very well just saying, I am a leader or I am a manager, I am a team leader. What is it about you that makes you get the most out of your people? Is it because you're a great listener? Is it because you've got empathy or you give people time? Is it because you've always got an eye on the stats and you really understand about process? Is it because you're funny and you make people laugh and you've got a really good team ethic? There'll be something about you that you do that will make you stand out as different to another HR manager, project manager, team leader. This will take a little bit of time to actually sit and reflect and think on what are the situations when you're in a situation, maybe a crisis situation, and something goes wrong. What do you do differently, or what do you do to get stuff done? And a lot of people will say, well, I just do that. That's just me. Well, that's fine. It's trying to tap into that to think about that is your special something. If you can get that out onto a CV and say, not only was I a team leader for a team of 10 people, which is the what, I achieved great results. We got to a world-class status within 6 months, or we delivered huge engagement score improvements, or we improved our customer service rating scores by X in 6 months. I motivate and lead my team with passion, enthusiasm, and empathy, with always an eye for the stats. Something like that. You're going to be standing out from the person who's just put team leader, customer services. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And you can start to see that there is little depth and layers to what you're trying to add to your CV. So CVs are, when we get them, and I've been reviewing some this week for a client actually, and some of them were 6 pages long. So can I just say 6 pages is too long for a CV, even if you are a very senior person and you've got years and years or decades of experience, it's still too long. You need to be able to summarize better some of the achievements that you've had. So you're getting some of this passion language and your information into the CV can be, you've got to be able to highlight it so that someone like me who is reviewing loads and loads of CVs is going to actually review them and read them, because otherwise you get 6 pages of very tiny font, very detailed X, Y, and Z, just a list. There's nothing to actually read, and it's not actually very interesting, and it doesn't really show you off as a person. So my belief is if you can put more of this passion language in and a bit more about yourself, I do this because this makes me happy, when I've loved doing this, this was an achievement, that I think will stand you out. So then I think the other area to think about is just thinking about some CV gaps. And I've got a couple of questions here that that always come up, and I thought I would just kind of go through some of these sort of tips. One question I always get asked is, what do I do with the gaps in my CV? I think years ago it was considered an absolute disaster if you'd got a gap on your CV. I don't think that's quite the case now, because a lot of people have them. A lot of people will have had gaps for childcare, families, health reasons, traveling, career breaks. It's sort of a lot more expected that that's what people will potentially have done. My view is that you should be honest about the career gap. Don't make up your dates. So if you did have a gap of 6 months between a contract, put that there was a gap, because if your company does do reference checking or date checking, which a lot of companies do, especially the bigger companies, they'll see that potentially you've got different dates than what you've said, and that then might call into question your sort of honesty and integrity. So if you've got gaps, um, put down that you've got a gap and just put a little line as to why. I think it's strange if people put that there's a big gap, certainly for several years perhaps, and don't put anything in there as to what they've learned or done. So for me, if you've had a career break or a childcare break, or a caring break, whatever it was for, you can put down the dates and you can say took time out to have a career break, but just put a line in there about what you did. I learned a language, I went traveling, I set up my own business, I was caring for my elderly parents. Because what you're going to show again is a bit of a human side. It explains the gap. If you can put anything that you learnt through that process in there as well, then all the better. Because especially if you're early part of your career and you've taken a career break or a travel break, businesses want to see that you learnt something along the way. So if you did learn a language or you went to 5 different countries and you were meeting lots of different people and had different work experiences, put that in. It's better than having nothing. So that's what I would do with gaps. A couple of other things. I talked about not putting incorrect dates and things. One of the key issues I saw when in all my corporate world is people who would just make stuff up on CVs. And I think one of the main tips I would give from a CV point of view is tell the truth. Don't put in a higher job title if that wasn't your job title. Again, it can get found out on checks. If you have an aspiration to do more, or you were always classed as a team leader, but you took on other responsibilities, you can put that in the wording. So you can say your role was team leader, but I was always asked to deputise for my manager, or I took on the recruitment and the hiring, and the disciplinary action. So you can show in the language what it was that you were doing. If you get through to interview, you can explain that you were given more responsibility, although you still just had the team leader title. But lying is one of the things, or hiding or avoiding the truth, is one of the key things that can kind of catch people out. Now, I worked in professional services, and they did very stringent recruitment and onboarding checks. And actually, we had quite a few people who would have come to us and worked with us as a temporary person. We then went through the more stringent checks later when they were onboarded perhaps as a permanent person, and we found that actually their CV or their qualifications didn't actually match. And because it was a professional services organisation where honesty and integrity was the main thing, they were dismissed, sadly. So being open and honest is really important. And then one of the other things I would say is, when you're if you're brushing up your CV and you haven't looked at it for a long time, do the master, as I said. So you've got literally everything in there that you have ever done. And so you've got a really great list of everything that you can pick. And then also think about what more personal things you might want to put in. One of the things that I think people miss is their own kind of hobbies, external interests. And sometimes, and a lady I was coaching recently had done lots and lots of things, voluntary work, charity work, fundraising, all sorts of things that were in her external, outside of work life. They hadn't been mentioned in the CV, but actually they were quite relevant to the job that she wanted to do. but also showed an element of passion, being able to work under your own steam, and actually get out there and do different things. So again, making sure you're looking at your whole life and where you've got your skills and achievements from. And then finally for today, just wanted to touch on, when you get to do the applications, making sure you're trying to reflect the language that is in those job adverts. So you will have written your master CV, which has got everything in from your point of view, the language that you're used to. But when you get to job applications, people are looking for a tailored CV. People are looking for something that says this person recognizes the language that I am talking. Now, this could be as simple as saying, they want dynamic and you've put motivated. In your CV, you can easily switch to saying I'm dynamic. And humans are a bit simple, really simple creatures. We like to look for things that match. So if you're a hiring manager thinking, I'm looking for dynamic, and you see a CV that says dynamic in the opening statement, then it's not a guarantee that you'll get through, but you might just be triggering something for that person to say, yeah, okay, I want dynamic. This is dynamic. So really try and personalize and tailor. Now, the more senior you are, the more time and effort that is going to take. But the more important it is, actually. I saw some posts on Facebook or LinkedIn last week that said somebody had been applying for hundreds and hundreds of jobs and they weren't getting anywhere. My view on that is that that's far too many to be applying for. And it looks like very much a scattergun approach, because realistically, there won't be 800 jobs that we really are a good match for. So we want to make sure that we're funneling down what we're interested in, and then only applying for the things that are of great interest. Now, if you've got your CV ready to go, you've got your master, you've made sure all the dates and everything are correct, you've added all your achievements, your skills, your passions, and you've done that in advance. When you get to the point where you need to apply for a role, whether that's sadly because you've been made redundant over the next few months, or because you're looking for something else and you're coming back into the job market, then you have got your CV that is already polished and ready to go. And all you'll need to do is just start to do some edits. And you'll find that that's a lot quicker to do than thinking on the day you've been made redundant, oh my God, I've got 10 years of CV catch up to do. So I hope that's useful. I would really encourage you to get the CV out from whichever folder you've stored it in. Have a look at it. Is it up to date? And can you just start to add to it? It doesn't have to be a massive project. You just start to add things to it, get it a bit more up to date, get it a bit tidier, and then start to think about some of those achievements and skills and some of your passions, and start to add them into it. So next week I am talking again on the 9th of December, so it'd be great if you could join me then. Next time I'm going to be talking about focusing on the future, and this is for anyone really who's thinking about what their career might be, and again, getting ahead of any potential changes that you might be facing at work, or redundancy, or going back into the job market. I want to be talking a little bit about how you can focus on the future and start to make some plans about your career journey. So you can sign up for that on Eventbrite, or you can click the link in Facebook or LinkedIn, so you can join me there. And a couple of other things to mention. The book, Get the Job You Really Want in a Post-Pandemic World, is available on Amazon. The Kindle version of this is actually available on a discounted price this week. So it finishes on the 5th. The Kindle version this week is only £1.99. So although this is a workbook, and so if I just show it here, there are some empty pages for people. Oh God, I don't know where the camera is. Here it is. There are some empty pages for people to fill in notes, But if you want the Kindle version, you can just simply get your own notebook and write down the questions, or you can do it online, because some people like to use an iPad and Notability and write their answers online. So that's only $1.99 for the rest of this week. So that's a good way to get hold of the book. If you want to know more, then you can find me on my website, and I've also got a podcast where I talk to different guests about how to get the job you really want. So that's all for me for today. Thank you for listening. If you're watching on replay, then please do leave a comment or get in touch via a messenger to let me know what you think. And if you've got any other questions, I'll try to answer them for you then. Thanks very much.